వెల్కమ్. వెల్కమ్ టు లైబ్రరీ ఫంక్షన్స్. మనం ఇంట్లో కాలు మీద కాలేసి కూర్చుంటే మనకు అన్ని పనులు ఎవడో ఒకటి చేసి పెట్టే చాలా బాగుంటుంది కదా. ఫ్యాన్ వేయడము, ఓకే, టీవీ పెట్టడము, ఛానల్ మార్చేయడము, ఎవడో అన్నం పెట్టియడము, అన్నం పెట్టిస్తాడు, అన్ని కలిపి కూడా ఇస్తారు. మనం స్పూన్ తీసుకొని స్టైల్గా తినేసి ప్లేట్ అక్కడే పెట్టేసి ఎవరో వచ్చి తీసుకెళ్తారు. అన్నీ మనకి ఇట్లా జరుగుతుంటే సూపర్గా ఉంటుంది కదా. వన్ సచ్ ఆస్పెక్ట్ ఈస్ లైబ్రరీ ఫంక్షన్స్. This session we will discuss about scanf and printf library functions, and after that we will discuss briefly some of the header files where there are other important library functions. So library functions are those functions which are written by somebody else which we make use of. So C language doesn't support any library directly. They're not part of the library. They're not part of the language actually. Libraries are not part of the language, but they are external libraries. Many people have provided these external libraries, and these external libraries are added to the language. So two important functions in C language, library functions in C language, which are useful for reading and writing data, are scanf and printf. Scanf and printf. They are the library functions. Function means it provides the required function. It performs the task. Scanf performs the task of reading. Printf performs the task of printing. So we can just directly make use of it. Actually, reading and writing, they are complex tasks. So reading means you have to find out which key is pressed, how many times that key is pressed, next which key is pressed, again after that what happened exactly. So you have to totally have a look at the keyboard. Underlying the keyboard will be the bytes where there will be a short circuit whenever you press a key. So all those things have to be captured. If scanf is not available, then you have to do all these things. But fortunately, we have this scanf which allows us to read data easily, and printf which prints the data. Again, the screen or display which you are seeing is very complex one. Scanf is a C built-in function to read the input from the standard input device. So you have standard input device, standard output device. Generally, keyboard is considered as standard input device and display is considered as standard output device. You read the data from the standard input device, you write the data to the standard output device. Okay, scanf is for reading the input. Scanf stands for scan format. That means it reads the data in the format specified. It has some specific format. You can specify the format. In which it has to read the data. That is, computer has to read the data. So it scans the input given by the user according to the format specified in the function invocation. The general format is scanf const char star format arg1 arg2 dash dash dash. So scanf is the name of the function. You have to use as it is, and parentheses are there. So the first argument is const char star format. That means there you will be specifying what are called as format specifiers. Okay, format specifier, list of format specifiers that are to be specified within the double quotes. Okay, so here you can say at this point you have Okay. So format sequence will be specified. The format sequence is nothing but the different format specifiers, that is a string enclosed in double quotation marks. Closed in double quotation marks, followed by arg1, arg2, etc. That means these are the arguments, these are the values which you want to read, these are the names of the variables, which you want to read. These are the names of the variables preceded by ampersand. Each variable name is preceded by the ampersand, so indicating that you are supplying the address. So that is the format to be followed, that is the syntax to be followed. Okay, we cannot change it. So arg1, arg2 are the variables whose names you have to specify. Depending on the number of variables which you are going to specify here, the number of format specifiers within these double quotation marks will vary. Okay, we will see it. The number of format specifiers should match the number of arguments. The number of format specifiers should match the number of arguments. The format specifier is dependent on the data type. So depending on the data type which you want to read, you have to specify appropriate format specifier. So arguments are sequence of names of the variables preceded by the ampersand symbol. Ampersand specifies the address of the variable. So these arguments are separated by commas. The function returns the number of items successfully read. In case of any error, IOF or end of file is written. Okay, for the time being, you need not bother too much about it. Okay, this point, the function returns the number of items successfully read. Ampersand is used to specify the address. Format specifiers are there within the double quotes, and then the arguments are there separated by commas, each argument preceded by the ampersand. So these are the format specifiers. These are the some of the format specifiers. %d for integer, %f for float, %lf for double, %c for char, %s for string of characters. Unfortunately, sometimes they may vary from compiler to compiler, particularly the double. In some books, they say you can use %f. In some books, %lf, like that. But %d, %f, %c, %s will be same. So we will see what to use in our compiler. So %d, %f, %lf, %c, %s for integer, floating point, double, char, string of characters. And the other format specifiers are %u, %e, %x, %o, %p. So this we rarely used. Unsigned integer we may use, but octal, hexadecimal, whenever you are using, you can check it. Okay. So this is an example. So first one, if you take, there is only one argument or one variable. So you can see that ampersand here. You can see ampersand here. In all the cases, you can see before the variables there is ampersand. So this is what is different from printf. In case of printf, the same format will be used, but ampersand will be missing. Ampersand need not be there. Okay. So you can see for the first case, we are reading only one variable. That is an integer. That's why we have specified it as %2. When you are reading two integers, say they are separated by commas, you have to specify 2 %ds within the double quotes. Now, if you have integer and floating point, you have to specify it as %d and %f. The order is also important because A is integer now, C is floating. Okay, real. So if the reverse is true, then you have to change this one also. If A is say float and C is integer, then you have to specify percentage of percentage D. So like this you can read. Like this you can read. Don't play with scanf. Don't try to insert any string or any data with additional characters within the scanf, because it will not generate, the compiler will not generate error messages. So we'll be getting the wrong output. So don't play with it. Don't play with it. Use exactly as specified. Next, printf. Similar to the scanf, it is for printing on the standard output device called as screen. So again, printf stands for print formatted. Print format. The general syntax is similar to the scanf, except that instead of scanf word, you have printf word. And format specifiers is same that of scanf. Ampersand is not specified. Ampersand is not specified. It returns the number of arguments successfully printed. It returns negative value otherwise. It returns the number of arguments successfully printed. So whenever we discuss any library function, or whenever you make use of any library function or your own function, so there are certain things which you should consider. So every function will have a name, every function will have a name, every function will have a return value, every function will have what are called as parameters. All the three you have to consider. So printf. In printf, you can include the strings. You can include the strings. So you can just include the strings. You need not always print some value at least. So it's not required. So here in the first case, you can see that hello, you are important to me. Only string is printed. Only string is printed. Hello, you are important to me. Only string is printed. Printf percentage D A. So you are printing one integer. And if you want, you can mix them also. The value of A is percentage D and C is percentage of AC. That means the A value will be printed here. A value will be printed here in the place of percentage D, and C value will be printed in place of percentage of. Example program for format specifiers. We will do the programming also, but theoretically we will discuss. You can see here, so character type is there, integer type, float type and double type. So enter the values of A, B, C, D, and you are reading the values. You can see, because A is character, percentage C, B is integer, percentage D, C is float, that's why percentage of, D is double, that's why percentage is LF. After reading, you are printing the values. And there will be a closing flower brackets. I think it went down. Closing flower bracket. I think this is the continuation of it. Unsigned integer E, float F. So if you want to read unsigned integer, you can use percentage I. I think percentage U is also possible, but I think in the version of the compiler which I used, which I checked with this program, it is percentage I. It is accepting percentage I. So this you may be required to be little careful. Of course, you will be restricting yourself to some compiler and doing it. There can be minor variations when you go into the details, but anyhow, we'll be working on integers, floating points, double character most of the time. We don't use these unsigned integers, exponential notation, etc., hexadecimal. But if you want, you can use. Here you can see octal and hexadecimal values are read using percentage O, percentage X. The addresses can be printed using percentage P. Percentage D can also be used. We'll see. But to be specific because I encountered problems while experimenting with this one. So it supported %p. So the address can be printed, not the value. Whenever you want to print the address, ampersand is required. Okay, you are printing the address. Example, program for size of data types. So I think this we discussed it already, but if you want, you can redo it again. So size of operator, this is actually a function, but it is called as operator in C language. Size of operator can be used to print the size of different data types. You can use data type name, or you can specify the value. So instead of int, you can specify 10. 10 is being an integer. What is the size that is supported? I think in our compiler, which we used Geni, so we got it as 4 bytes in case of integer. Float is also 4 bytes. Character is 1 byte. Double 8 bytes. So like this, you can print. You can copy and print them. You can copy this program, take a snapshot. Want, you can retype it and find out. Some other library functions, we are not going to the details. Some other library functions which may be useful to you. So the first set is defined in ctype.h header file. You have to include it. If you want to use any of these library functions, you have to include ctype.h. So as the name indicates, is alphanumeric. Is alphanumeric. If is the character C alphanumeric, if it is alphanumeric, it returns true. It returns true. Otherwise, it returns false. In C language, anything other than 0 is true. In C language, anything other than 0 is true. Please remember, because we may make use of that concept. Is alphabetic? Is it a blank? Is it a digit? Is it lowercase? Is it printable character or not? Is it a punctuation mark? Is it a space? And then converting to lowercase, uppercase, capital to small letters to capital letters. You can do it. Okay, by making use of this ctype.h. By making use of ctype.h. These are the library functions which you may be required if you are working on the test data. If you are working on the test data, then it's better you just have a look at it. ctype.h. Math.h. If you are working on mathematics, then these are some of the library functions. Exponentiation, log 2, that is otherwise log 10, absolute value, power, that is x to the power of y, xp is e to the power of x, exp, first one is e to the power of x. So the POW, which is x to the power of y, square root of the value, seal, floor, seal means to the higher integer, round off to higher integer. Floor is round off to lower integer. Okay, floor. So and then the round which depending on the value, whether it is 3.5 or 3.6 or 3.4, depending on it, it rounds appropriately. Next is truncate. Truncate always to lower value. Truncate is always to lower value. Remainder you can calculate. So stdio.h, f close, f open, this will be with will be using along with the files. That is the last topic, last chapter. So we'll see later. So printf is there, scanf is there. Whenever you are using printf and scanf, so you have to use stdio.h. So that is the common. So you always, that's why you always include stdio.h. F get S, F get C, F put C, F put S. These are available for getting a character, getting the string, printing the character, printing the string, etc. So as and when required, we'll discuss. But we can print using scanf and printed, formatted scanf, formatted printf. Otherwise, you can work on individual characters, group of characters as a string, etc. Okay, get C, F get C, they are associated with the file, whereas simple get C is also available to get individual characters. Get char is also available. Okay, these are some of the library functions that are available. Depending on the requirement, we will be using them. Depending on the requirement, we will be using them. stdlib.h, which are basically for converting from string to integers, integer to string. 123, it can be treated as integer or it can be converted to string. String means it is a sequence of characters, characters 1, 2, 3. So depending on the requirement, we will be converting. And also the memory related things, we will discuss more about these things in pointers. So you can allocate the memory, you can release the memory, you can have control over the memory. String.h, whenever we are working with string.h strings, you can make use of this library function. String copy for copying the strings. Okay. strncpy is also for copying, but there is one additional restriction. So all these things we will study as part of the strings, but these are the commonly used library functions. These are the commonly used library functions. So add to your library, just remember there is a lot of support for you. There is a lot of support for you in the form of library functions. So go through the library functions whenever you want to work on some program or some problem. Depending on the problem, you have to choose appropriate library. Okay. So that's what you have to do. So add to your library. We will discuss the programs related to it. So as part of this module, we will be discussing one program or lengthy one. We will be discussing the different aspects which we studied as part of this module in a program. So maybe from the next module onwards, we'll go into the serious programming. Okay. Thank you for joining. Best of luck.